In this second video, we're going to talk about how psychology affects your financial plan. And of course, psychology is everywhere. It has everything to do with human behavior and decision making. Has a major impact on the things that we spend money on. And frequently you'll hear people talk about there's a difference between what you want and what you need, right? Your ability to create a plan is part of your psyche, part of your decision-making process. So we want to talk about how this affects the ultimate planning. So we need to focus on two things. We need to focus on immediate satisfaction, peer pressure, but we also have to focus on the future. Now the concept, and this is really, I guess, sort of my opinion, is why we tend to make bad choices. We tend to make bad choices because of a concept called consumerism, right? Essentially what investing and personal finance is all about is about logical, thoughtful, strategic planning that has fundamental theories and theorems that maintain or create a foundation to make proper decisions. And then we have the human being who, instead of planning and working with those tools, human beings have a tendency to be much more emotional. Frequently you'll hear people say that people have a tendency to, when they're thinking about financial services, they plan with their hearts and not their heads. That is, why do we make the decision we make? Buying financial services is not like buying a car, right? There are other factors, there are other things we need to consider. And again, this is one of the challenges that we have when we want to make plans about financing, right? So, how do we develop a plan? Well, the first step is we need to establish some goals, right? All kinds of financial goals: home, college, wealth. Are they realistic, right? We need to talk about those things that are very realistic. I plan on being a billionaire someday. There's not a strong likelihood of that happening, right? Could I create enough wealth to live happily during retirement? Well, that's something that's a little bit more realistic. And of course, our timing of goals, there's three time frames, if you can think about this. There's a short term, an immediate term, and a long term. Long term beyond 5 years, short term within 1 year, right? So we need to understand that we need to establish some goals. Where is it that we want to go? Next, we need to consider our current financial position, right? Your financial position is tied to many things. It's tied to your education, right? Consider your skills, interests, career paths, right? How your financial position is tied to your career choice is just as important as anything else, right? Choosing a career that's going to be enjoyable and will suit your skills is a task that's not all that easy. You're probably thinking about this now as we think about this. If you're in a class, in a college, right? Have you chosen the right career? Are you planning to do things that will be helpful in the future? Your financial position is obviously tied to the economy, right? Economic conditions affect the types of jobs available, salaries, etc., right? There was a financial crisis, 2008, 2009, affected many financial positions, right? There was a reduction of new job opportunities. Some jobs were lost. Lower salaries for some existing jobs are out there, right? And many assets lost their value, right? Now, let's think about how that has changed in the last 10 to 11, 12 years. What is the current economic condition like? How does that affect your current choices? So I would think if you were thinking about maybe in the, let's say 2014, 15, 16, you think about what could you possibly do? The world wasn't all that rosy of a place. There was higher unemployment, interest rates were kind of high, right? There were all kinds of things going on with the economy. We were working out of a recession, but it was very slow. But what has happened since 2016, right? There's a lot more opportunity available in a better economy than a worse economy. But what if you hadn't planned on that? What if you just says, I think the world's going to be crappy like this forever, so why should I try to do anything different? Let me just grab something and go with it. That plan might not have worked out all that well. And if you kind of think about income, right? I mean, this is the comparison of income among educational levels, right? With a bachelor's degree, you should expect on average around $57,000 as a pretty decent income. 69 grand at a master's, and if you can go even higher than that educationally, it's possible to get even higher. But even if you look within here, look within a bachelor's degree, right? There's a tendency for more technical bachelor's degrees to pay higher than those that are less technical, right? So even within these degrees, there's obviously degrees of income within those. Again, these are just obviously averages. But we do know that how much your career that you choose, right, the education that you need for that career will help to determine how much income you may ultimately make. So steps 3 and 4, right? Now that we've set our goals, we understand what we want to do now. We need to identify plans that can help us do those goals. And we have to select the tools, right, that are best to help us implement those plans, right? So we have the internet's available. We have to be pretty careful with it, but the internet's available. And finally, obviously, we have to decide, are we going to be conservative? Are we going to be aggressive? This will have an impact on whether or not the goals are reasonable or not reasonable. Thinking about the internet and some of the information, let's think about using that, right? There's just an unreasonable amount of information on the internet. You can find information about current tax rates, regulations, how investments have performed. You can get retirement plan rules. There's all kinds of calculators to help you estimate taxes, determining how your savings might grow, right? Little tools that you can put numbers in to let you know whether it's better to buy or lease a car. So there's so many tools available on the internet. But your objective is get the best advice appropriate to your needs. And here's where we just have to be careful, right? You have to be wary of unethical behavior, right? This is very difficult to discern, right? If somebody is trying to get you to buy something, right? And I don't want this to sound really bad and too negative, right? But the reason they're trying to get you to buy something is they're getting paid, right? It's their job to get you to buy. And if you kind of think about a car dealership, right? If a salesperson is selling, there's only 2 cars left on the lot. One car, the salesperson will make $1,000, and the other car, the salesperson will make $5,000. Which car do you think they're going to try to sell with the greatest amount of enthusiasm, right? They need to make as much money as they can because they have to feed their family, right? So when somebody is trying to get you to buy something, it's very important to understand what questions to ask. It's very important to understand the basics of the things that they're trying to sell you so you can ask the right question. You have to be wary of incompetent advice. Again, how do you know it's incompetent, right? You have to be alert. You have to ask questions. You need to carefully consider any advice. And quite frankly, maybe you have to ask for second opinions. Ask other people, right? And again, as I was talking, right, beware that, salespeople have to feed their families, right? What products would you sell if you knew the commission, right? So again, there's many aspects of ethics and getting information that it really makes this a very important decision that has so much uncertainty, so much risk involved. But we have to make some decisions, right? So in the end, when we have a plan, we just have to evaluate it, right? We have to follow it. We have to assess it to make sure it's doing what we want it to do. And of course, in the end, just as life changes, our plans are going to change. So we're going to need to be able to make changes over time as our financial conditions change, as our income changes, as our family changes. So we're going to have to be able to revise this plan. So it is, a circular argument, if you will. You need to start to think about where you want to go. Find tools that you think will get you there. Use those tools. But in the end, you're going to have to find out whether or not the tools are working or not. And only time will tell you whether or not those tools are working. See you in the next video.